Hey, so this is part 2 in a series of videos. Once again, these videos are not meant to hate on men or say that women can do everything and anything and we don't need help. But if you don't have help, you don't have someone to do these things for you, I want you to not only have the information you need, but the confidence to follow through with it. By the way, this episode is sponsored by Blue Collar Grind. I'll leave a link in the description if y'all want to check them out. Today, we're going to learn how to maintenance our vehicle. Not so much doing the work of a mechanic, but being able to give your vehicle a monthly checkup, or just a few little tips to help you catch problems on your vehicle before they become serious issues. We all obviously know that it's important to keep gas in your car, right? But I feel like we sometimes overlook all the other things that are equally as important for keeping your car healthy. So the first thing we're going to check is the oil. You can find the dipstick right down here. Usually says engine oil on it. It's probably yellow. We're gonna pull it out, wipe it off because you've been driving around, the line's not very clear. Stick it back in, make sure it goes in all the way. Pull it back out a second time and you should be able to clearly see that the line is between full and low. Some dipsticks look a little bit different than this one. If the dipstick reads low and you do need to add oil, we are going to check in your manual. Once you have the right type of oil, we're gonna add some, start it up, check it again. Make sure you don't add too much at one time. Being overfull can also be just as dangerous as being under. Next, we're gonna check the antifreeze. I want you to know that this gets very hot if the engine has been running. So we wanna make sure everything's cooled down before we touch this. We're just gonna take off the lid. Make sure you can see liquid here. If you can't, you can add distilled fresh clean water. Also, when you go to buy antifreeze, make sure you get the right color. Mine's red, there's also green, gold, whatever. I'm gonna tell you a little secret. They sell pre-mixed, half and half, and that's what you're supposed to put in your vehicle, but you're basically paying $15 for half a jug of water. And the full strength stuff is only about $3 more. So if you need to pour some in, we're gonna squeeze this tube back here to make sure we get any air bubbles out. The next thing we're gonna check is your brake fluid. Usually you can see this kind of clear little reservoir back here. Just make sure that the line of liquid is between the full and empty lines. We're also gonna check your power steering fluid. It also is sometimes a clear little reservoir. You can see the level of liquid. If your vehicle doesn't have this, your steering is completely housed underneath the vehicle, and in that case it's a sealed up type of system, and you really only need to maintenance it if your steering wheel starts being hard to turn or you notice it making weird noises. We also are going to look for this other dipstick to check your transmission fluid. We check it the same way we checked the oil, except that your vehicle needs to be running. So make sure you tie your hair back anytime you're leaning over a running vehicle, not wearing any loose clothes. Once again, if your vehicle doesn't have a transmission dipstick, it's also housed underneath the vehicle. The owner's manual will tell you that it will last the lifetime of the vehicle. I'm sure that's probably not true, but we're only going to check it if we start to notice a problem, like the vehicle is shifting really hard or not going into gear like it should. And we'll save the easiest one for last. This is your washer fluid. Just top it off anytime you need to. These next few things are not really fluids, but they need to be included in your monthly maintenance check. We're gonna check your air filter. If you live on a dirt road, these get caked up pretty fast. I typically switch mine out every other oil change, but between oil changes, you can just knock the dust out, stick it back in there, you're good to go. We also wanna look and make sure that this belt right here is not frayed or cracked or looking brittle in any way. Next, we're gonna talk about your battery. We want to make sure that your terminals and cables are all clean and free of corrosion. They're all well connected. Nothing in there looks janky. If your battery terminals do happen to have corrosion on them, battery acid is extremely harmful to your skin. So we want to make sure we have a pair of gloves and safety glasses. We're going to use a wire brush to just brush the corrosion away. Then we're going to find the tools we need to take these cables loose and brush all around the terminals and the connections. Make sure everything is clean and getting good contact before we put it back on. If you do have corrosion happening often, you might have a bad connection somewhere, or it's time to replace your battery. Next, we're gonna check tire pressure all the way around. If you're unsure how much air is supposed to be in your tire, typically for a car, it's around 35 PSI. If you drive a pickup, it's probably 55 or 60 PSI. But if you're unsure, you definitely want to avoid filling it up too much. So on the side of the tire here, you can see max pressure. While we're filling them up, we also want to check the tread. These little pieces right here are called wear bars, and once your tread on the rest of your tire reaches the same height as those little pieces right there, it's time for new tires. If you see wires showing on your tire ever, don't drive it anywhere but straight to the tire shop. We are also going to check your brakes. It happens so gradually that sometimes it's hard to notice how bare your brakes are until you get new brakes again. So we're going to look in here and make sure your rotor has no rust on it or chips out of the metal. You want to make sure that this metal piece right here is nice and smooth. Then we're gonna look a little deeper inside here. You can see this bracket here holds your actual brake shoes, and this is the piece that gets worn down over time. Here's the difference between fresh brakes and old brakes. We're also gonna check out your wiper blades. Make sure that they're not cracked, the rubber's still pliable and soft. It's also a good idea every now and then to check your lights. Your brake lights, headlights, taillights, blinkers. So that's basically everything that needs to be checked on a regular basis. I want to also talk to you about going to a mechanic shop as a woman. I'm probably gonna get hate for saying this on the internet, but mechanics are kind of notorious for taking advantage of women and assuming that we'll pay whatever they tell us we need just because we don't know any better. The only thing we can really do to prevent that is to kind of have an idea before we walk in of why we're there. So if you didn't know, you can go to O'Reilly's, ask for a diagnostics check if your check engine light is on, and it's free. They'll tell you what the code is, what it means, so you can kind of know what you're looking for when you take it to the shop. Definitely don't buy anything extra that a mechanic tells you you need unless you put your eyes on it yourself and see that it is messed up. Let me just tell you a little story. It was kind of a not great time in my life. My confidence level was non-existent. I went into the shop to get a tire patched, which shouldn't cost more than $15, especially back then. The mechanic came out and told me that I needed all new lug nuts on all 4 tires, which I knew was ridiculous. Like, I was raised better than that. I knew that there's no way I needed all new lug nuts. But being there with the wrong mindset, I let him take advantage of me, even though I knew I didn't need them and that there's no way it should cost me that much. So anyway, if you find yourself having to fill up one of these fluids every month, aside from your washer fluid, of course, you probably have a leak somewhere and it is time to go get it checked out. That being said, walk in with confidence, tell them exactly what's leaking. So the last thing I want to talk about in this episode is buying a used vehicle. Whether you're buying from an individual or a car lot, the first thing you do when you're looking at a car, crawl up under it and check for rust. If there's any amount of rust on the frame, do not buy the car. It will only get worse. And there's probably more rust than you can actually see. Dealerships especially are really good at cleaning up the exterior and the interior of the vehicle, making it look pristine. But if there's rust, there's no coming back from that. We also want to check at least the oil. Most dealerships change the oil before you get to see it, so it might not help you. But if the oil is really low, it's probably leaking faster than they can keep it full. Or if it's a different color than it should be, when you first pour oil in, it's this goldish color. When it's been used for a while, it's a dark brown, almost blackish color. But if you see any milky, weird, watery, strange colored oil, don't buy it. If you're still here, thanks for watching. I hope this video was helpful, at least a little bit. If there was a topic here that I didn't explain well enough, feel free to leave it in the comments. The next video is going to be about what to do in emergency situations, mostly involving your vehicle. I'll see you next Sunday.